from sunny Miami in the free state of Florida. It is September 25th, 2024. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. As always, live streaming on the Rumble, on the YouTube, on the Locals. Post-game show, rubinreport.locals.com. And I am feeling very confident about today's show. I'm going to make a prediction right now. We're looking at a 9-2 to a 9-6 today. Feel very confident, but I leave that up to you. I know that's what you guys all discuss at dinner with the loved ones. What did Dave Rubin do today? Did he provide us with the entertainment and information as he promised, or did he screw it up? And then you have dessert and go to bed and do it again the next day. We're all over the world today because the UN is having a little situation. Justin Trudeau is here. They dragged out Joe Biden's old bones to give one of his last speeches to the world community. Then we'll do some election stuff and a whole bunch more. So let's just dive right into it. No, actually, I'm going to read an ad first. Before we do anything, I've got an ad for you. Hang tight. I'll be right back. To parents out there who have purchased an emergency kit to keep yourself out of urgent care in the hospital, the wellness company has just released the kids' emergency kit version with an optional EpiPen. You asked and they delivered, just in time for back to school. Strep throat, lice, the flu, ear infection, all the unexpected stuff that comes with being a parent and stresses you out. It's a truly helpless feeling when your little ones come down with something serious. Not to mention it can turn your plans upside down, especially on vacation. Luckily, you no longer have to rely on the medical gatekeeper process or frantically bother your pediatrician on the weekends. Now you can have 6 critical medicines at your fingertips like amoxicillin, ivermectin, EpiPen, and afloxacin. The kids' emergency kit has been hand-selected by the wellness company's medical board to treat 20-plus illnesses without leaving your home. The 40-page guidebook is like having an expert by your side, guiding you step by step, even when the doctor's office is closed. Ordering the kit is simple. Purchase the kit, fill out an intake form, and it's delivered right to your door. No more late-night pharmacy runs, no more scrambling when your kid needs you the most. And if 1 or 2 of the scripts runs out, there's a replenishment option to restock only what you need. This isn't just a purchase, it's peace of mind. This is the modern way of taking care of your kids. Don't wait until you're in the middle of a crisis. Order your kids' emergency kit today and be the hero your child deserves exactly when they need you. Get equipped by ordering your kit at twc.health/Rubin. Use code Rubin to save up to $60 at checkout. That's twc.health/Rubin. Use code Rubin to save up to $60 at checkout. These kits are available only in the US of A. I should mention, guys, I said a 9-2 to a 9-6 because I knew we could not get to a 9-8 because we had to throw an ad in early because we had Clay Travis co-hosting with us yesterday, so there were no ads in the show because it was a last-minute switcheroo, and if I throw an ad in that early, I think I have to knock off 0.2 or so. All right, but I promise to deliver for the next hour or so. Justin Trudeau, who is the horrible communist leader up in Canada, who has just done so much damage in Canada. It is absolutely extraordinary across their economy, absolutely in terms of free speech, with the most, really some of the most draconian lockdowns in all of the West. I would say maybe second to Australia. That's probably debatable. The UN has given their big yearly general summit, and all the bad guys are in town in New York City right now. And Justin Trudeau made it over to the Stephen Colbert quote unquote comedy program, and here we go.
You're our closest ally, Canada. We stand, shoulder to shoulder, facing the world and the challenges of the world. I'm sure you're talking about a lot about the UN. What do we fight over? Because we don't think of ourselves as fighting with you guys. What's the big? Is it soft lumber tariffs? What is it?
Yeah,
fishing rights.
That's an issue. Yeah, these are issues,
yes.
But they're always small issues that matter. I mean, you guys are paying too much for your lumber because you've got tariffs on it, and that doesn't make any sense. So we keep trying to point that out for you,
right.
But we'll keep working on that.
But we come up to you guys to get cheaper drugs.
Yeah,
we come over the border for cheaper drugs. You guys okay with that?
We're happy to try and help you out, but it'd be really easier if you guys had universal health care.
Okay, I didn't play that just to illustrate that his lisp is getting worse. I played that because of what happened there, that last line there about it would be a lot easier if you guys had universal health care. Now, they do have universal health care up in Canada. We're going to read some stats on that in just a second. But did you see how quickly, Connor, would we be able to jump back to just that last 10 seconds there? Did you see how quickly the audience applauded when he said that, how unnatural that was? They were ready and fired up because at these shows, and this is just part of how the system works, at these shows, they literally have PAs. They have a huge sign that tells people when to laugh and applaud, and it's blinking. And they have PAs that literally, production assistants, that literally stand up to show people when they are supposed to applaud. So can we just go back to that last 10 seconds?
You're our closest ally, Canada.
So healthcare.
Universal healthcare. Now, universal healthcare, as you know, I always say that with the left, everything is a thin veneer, right? It sounds good on the top if you just glance at it, but when you pin that thin veneer back, it's usually pretty nasty below. And that's exactly how it is with the Canadian healthcare system. A guy by the name of Mark Hemingway saw that clip and he tweeted this: the entirety of Canada has fewer MRI machines than Pittsburgh. I don't know what he's bragging about. And actually, that is quite true, which is why so many people, often cancer patients, come down from Canada to get coverage and see doctors here in America because they have extraordinarily long lines on this. A little more information on that from British Columbia Living. Canada has one of the lowest rates of MRI scanning machines per capita in the developed world, with 6 MRI scanners per million people, compared to 40 in Japan, 14 in Switzerland, and 26.6 in the United States. Pittsburgh alone has more MRI machines than Canada. So this is exactly what the left does with everything. They give you the bumper sticker thing that sounds good. Universal health care for everybody. We would all love that in some perfect utopia. And the doctors would all have the time they needed to do all of the work they needed to do, and everybody was seen in a functional way. But if you think the government manage that, well, just look at Obamacare and look at the lines. I can tell you, even down here in Florida, where things are run pretty damn well, to get appointments has gotten much more difficult. You want to get an appointment with the dermatologist or even a dentist. The more that the government gets involved in all of these things, the more paperwork there is, the more bureaucratic nonsense. I have a friend who's a doctor in Dallas who is always telling me he spends more time doing paperwork now than seeing patients since Obamacare, and it used to not be that way. But that's what they do, and then they have literally PAs going, he said universal health care, they all go crazy. We will connect this to largely what's going on in the West, because it's that type of thinking that is destroying so much in the West. But before we do that, I want to jump to another Canadian. There are some sane Canadians. It's not just men of the past like John Candy. We've got guys like Kevin O'Leary. We show a lot of clips of Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, a brilliant investor. Here he is on a podcast a couple days ago talking about how Trudeau has just dismantled Canada.
You never spoken to Trudeau, have you?
No, I don't like that guy. Not because he's a bad person. He's just a horrible manager. He's the worst prime minister the country's ever had. But he's had a great run over 9 years. Brought the country to its knees. Unbelievably bad management. The way you should do it in the parliamentary system is you're the prime minister. You don't have to run anything. What you have to do is hire good managers for the seats of finance, military procurement, environment, these different cabinet positions. You hire them and you put these people in place and they work for you. Now, if you don't have any skill at that, you're screwed. For example, he put a journalist in for finance minister with no skills whatsoever in finance, never ran a bank. I mean, why would you do that? And of course, she's a total failure. It's unfair to put her in that position. She decimated the company. Capital's leaving Canada like crazy. When she started, it was coming into the country. Now it's leaving. Richest country on earth per capita in terms of resources, run by idiots. That's
sad.
That's what Canada is. And it's got
All right, so he's whittling down what has happened to Canada just perfectly. It's just so obvious with Justin Trudeau, right? He's like a closeted gay theater queen who used his good hair or whatever his connections were through his dad to become prime minister. And in the 9 years that this man has been prime minister, he has systematically destroyed Canada. Now, it's interesting. He says the implication is that he's a good guy, but he doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know if he's a good guy or not. I'm sick of giving these people the benefit of the doubt. And the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I don't know what his intentions are exactly. I think you could probably make an argument that he actually is a socialist or a communist, and his intentions actually are not good, and he's trying to destroy the country. But that aside, the basic part of what O'Leary's saying there is, what do you have to be as a prime minister? And we can do a version of this for president of the United States. What do you have to be if you're in charge of a giant organization? You have to be able to delegate authority. You have to be able to choose people and put people in positions that are good at what they do. You're not expected to do everything, right? The manager at McDonald's is not expected to do everything, but hopefully he has probably 2 or 3 good assistant managers. Hopefully has some people beneath them and the people that are working the cash register and flipping the fries and all of those things. And then you get a functional store, and then the store hopefully starts earning more money. It might be able to expand. The guy who owns the franchise can do another one. Okay, you get all that. That's what you would want out of a functional government. But as he points out, he's hiring people that are completely unqualified to do certain jobs. And do we have the exact same thing happening here in America? Well, Pete Buttigieg is our transportation secretary. Pete Buttigieg has no expertise in transportation whatsoever. He did not study city planning or anything else, but he's gay, so we gave him the job. And that's literally true. They wanted to fill a diversity hire. Then we have Rachel Levine, who's the assistant deputy of health or something. Do we have any inclination what this dude knows about health other than I don't even know if he chopped off his wang, which frankly wouldn't be much of a qualifier if you were trying to get a job in health, but he wears a dress, so suddenly he's in charge of health. We get it, Karine Jean-Pierre. They have done everything for diversity, and then you look around and you go, boy, the country's a little screwy right now. We're having all sorts of problems, and it might be because instead of hiring good people, a man with dementia or whoever has been pulling his strings hired a bunch of people who weren't qualified so that it would look good on paper. We will get to some of the places that things are going well in the West in just a second, but let me talk to you about Moink Box. Did you guys know that there are 4 companies in the U.S. that control over 80% of the U.S. meat industry? And China now controls the largest portion of U.S. pork. These companies are using mobster-like tactics to crush American family farms, and with the additives they're putting into our foods, Americans are stuck with sketchy meat. So what can you do about this? Let me tell you about a company that's coming up swinging on behalf of American family farms and your family's food security, Moink. The business is simple. Moink's meat comes from animals raised outdoors where a pig is free to be a pig. Their farmers are given an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, and they deliver meat straight to your doorstep at prices you can actually afford. Born, raised, and harvested right here in the U.S. of A. Keep American family farms farming by joining the Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/Rubin. Sign up today and get free hot rolls in your first order. Spelled MOINK box.com/Rubin. Oink, oink, get moinked. Moinkbox.com/Rubin. All right, so what's happening in the U.S. right now? Well, the UN General Assembly is taking place on the east side of New York City. When I used to live in New York City, everybody hated this week because the traffic is insane, and these people, there's a lot of stories how all these UN people, none of them pay their parking tickets, they skip bills, like they're just like the worst of the worst. The UN, for those of you that are Justice League fans, it's basically the Legion of Doom, where they would get together all the bad guys and they would work on their plans to destroy the world. That pretty much is what the UN has become. If I was in charge, or perhaps if Donald Trump's in charge again, we will boot the UN out of America. They should just defund the entire thing and probably consider it a terrorist organization, but okay, fine. Once in a blue moon over there, something good happens. And here's a guy, Nayib Bukele, you know, from El Salvador, the now 2-time president of El Salvador, who has completely cleaned up his country, who's fighting for free speech, who got gang members off the street. It was a third world country. He's basically turned into the safest Western democracy right now. And here is Nayib Bukele giving a speech and sort of sticking it to the Biden-Harris administration.
Como salvadoreños reconocemos estos síntomas de la decadencia cuando los vemos, porque hemos pasado por todos ellos. Vivimos las etapas de la caída de nuestra nación una por una. Y estamos viendo esas mismas etapas una vez más, pero esta vez a escala global. No podemos ni deseamos decirles a otros países lo que tienen que hacer. Cada país debe tomar sus propias decisiones y hacer lo que sea mejor para su gente. Solo podemos ofrecer una palabra de advertencia de un amigo que ha pasado por una época oscura y ha librado la batalla de su vida para salir de ella. No podemos cambiar el curso del mundo. El Salvador es un país demasiado pequeño. Somos de hecho el país más pequeño de todo el continente americano. Esto es mucho más grande que nosotros y de hecho es más grande que cualquier nación. No podemos prevenir los tiempos oscuros que se avecinan, pero lo que sí podemos hacer es convertirnos en un pequeño refugio ante la tormenta que se aproxima y mantener la esperanza. En El Salvador no encarcelamos a nuestra oposición, no censuramos opiniones, no confiscamos bienes de quienes piensan diferente. No arrestamos a las personas por expresar sus ideas. En El Salvador tu libertad de expresión, así como tu propiedad privada, siempre estarán protegidas. En El Salvador priorizamos la seguridad de nuestros ciudadanos honestos sobre la comodidad de los criminales. Algunos dicen de que hemos encarcelado miles, pero la realidad es que hemos liberado a millones. Ahora son los buenos los que viven libres, sin miedo, con sus libertades y derechos humanos totalmente respetados.
I'll never stop saying it, guys. It is so refreshing when you hear someone telling the truth. It actually does something to you physiologically. Like, it's easy and you can relax as opposed to listening to the endless BS that we hear all the time. For those of you that are not native Spanish speakers, and I just said to the team, we're going to work on, when we do these, getting some AI translation so that for those of you on the audio podcast will be able to get it. In essence, what he's saying is we have a tiny country in El Salvador. We have a tiny country, but we've lived through the dark times. And we can't tell anyone else what to do or how to live. That should be up to each country. But you might learn some lessons from what we went through to now get here. And we will not arrest people for expressing their opinion or exercising free speech. We will protect private property, all of these things. And it's so ironic that now we should be listening to the president of El Salvador, that the president of El Salvador has more in common with any of our founding fathers, any of the people who wrote the Constitution and founded this incredible country, than quite literally anyone in today's Democratic Party. And that absolutely is the truth. Elon Musk saw that and he retweeted the speech and he said, simply, great speech by Nayib Bukele. And again, that just gets to this growing coalition, whatever it is, of Bukele and Elon and RFK and Tulsi and Joe Rogan, and you get that entire thing. Now let's contrast that with just a speech that was pure BS, drivel BS by a man who is almost at the end, literally and figuratively. Joe Biden got up there and listened to him talk about why he exited the presidential race.
I made the preservation of democracy the central cause of my presidency. This summer, I faced a decision whether to seek a second term as president. It was a difficult decision. Being president has been the honor of my life. There's so much more I want to get done. As much as I love the job, I love my country more. I decided after 50 years of public service, it's time for a new generation of leadership to take my nation forward. My fellow leaders, let us never forget, some things are more important than staying in power. It's your people.
It's just pure drivel. You know, I almost feel bad talking about him at this point because he's just being shown the door. His legacy is going to be destroyed. I know that they sort of promised him some stuff like, we'll give a little extra money to the Joe Biden library, or they made sure that Jill will be well taken care of, or Hunter got a lifetime supply of Coke, or whatever it is. But it's pathetic watching him. And it's so profoundly dishonest what he's saying. He ran on the preservation of democracy. Okay, it's your Justice Department trying to get your opponent out of the way, and that he made the decision this summer. So is that true, Joe Biden? So somehow you force RFK out, so you're going to have no primary, right? And then you get to the summer, and did you just decide you weren't going to run anymore? Did you just decide after 50 years you were going to put down the reins? or did something happen? And you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist. You just have to listen to what Pelosi and Schumer have said. And really what we know that Barack Obama was doing. They all got together and they absolutely 100% did it with Kamala Harris because she was the key to the whole thing. The only way you could have a true lever against him was to get them all together and say, she, Kamala, is going to pull the 25th Amendment on you. We are going to go after you as incompetent. That was the only way. There was no other pressure point they could get him on, right? As incompetent and ridiculous as he is. And he's not making any of the decisions. Obviously, Jill and or the crackhead or whatever are. But he did not just decide, I will let it go. They took him out. We had a coup in the United States and things just go on and on. The winner of the coup was Kamala Harris, who did not get one vote, had virtually no support when she ran against Joe Biden the first time 4 years ago, and is now running, I would say, an absolutely horrific campaign of meaningless dribble, but being propped up by the media. We'll talk about that in just a second, but first, River Financial. As the government keeps printing money, inflation has destroyed the savings and wealth of all Americans. We need a way to protect our families and finances from inflation, and that's where Bitcoin comes in. With a fixed supply, Bitcoin is protected from inflation. While the dollar loses value over time, Bitcoin is designed to preserve it. And because it's censorship resistant, no one, not even the government, can control or seize your wealth. Now, getting into Bitcoin might seem a bit complicated, but it doesn't have to be. That's where River comes in. River is a U.S.-based financial institution focused solely on Bitcoin, helping you buy, sell, and securely store it. They're based right here in America, and if you ever have questions, their U.S.-based phone support team is just a call away. With River, you can dollar cost average into Bitcoin with zero fees, making it easy to build your Bitcoin holdings over time. So if you're ready to protect your wealth and take control of your financial future, visit river.com/Rubin Report today to get started. Okay, so they hand the thing to Kamala, and that leads us to where we are at right now, where we have a candidate who's not really a person with a set of beliefs or a vision, but who is just an avatar filled with a bunch of competing ideas, just trying to keep that 50-year power thing that Joe Biden is pretending that he put down. So I want to show you a quick video. It's about 30 seconds, 2 videos compilation of Kamala during the primary when she ran against Joe Biden and the rest of the Dems, and then when she was running as VP. So they're only a few months apart. And of course, is it that she's running on great ideas, or could it be that there's a certain orange man who's a very, very bad man?
And frankly, we have a president of the United States. We talked about, you asked before, what is the greatest national security threat to the United States? It's Donald Trump. And I'm going to tell you why.
Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy and our most fundamental freedoms. Remember the chaos, the division, the attacks that took rights and liberties from the American people. We cannot allow that to happen again.
National security threat, existential threat. The reason I wanted to show you ones from years ago is because it's not that they're just magically coming up with all of this stuff now. That is the driving point of her campaign. You can't really point to Kamala Harris. You literally can't. I mean, you can make it up, but you can't, in an honest sense, point to Kamala Harris and say, these are the 10 things that she believes, and she's believed them for years. You can't, because she has flipped on all of those things. You can evolve. I certainly have evolved. I have no doubt that you've evolved on issues, but you can't flip on all of your issues. And that is precisely what she has done, except she hasn't flipped on that Donald Trump's an existential threat, which might lead to somebody trying to kill him. Do you think that that would be possible? Anyway, Megyn Kelly, who is formerly a lawyer, now a brilliant podcaster. This was great. She went on a podcast to just debunk all of the nonsense around the Trump court cases, which is one of the ways they've tried to, let's say, deal with this existential threat.
If he is found guilty of those 2 more, Megyn, and 5 of 5, he had a bad result, way to frame it. Will you chalk all 5 up in your mind to 5 different jurisdictions, 5 different prosecutors, 5 different juries and or judges, all conspiring to get him?
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
That's all I wanted to hear your answer to. 5 of 5 different jurisdictions. Yeah. You think it's all lawfare?
Jean Carroll, they changed the law so that she could bring a civil lawsuit against him, and she did. New York went 87% for Joe Biden. That fix was in right from the start. The fraud trial that Letitia James brought against him has never been brought. There's no victims. The banks who were involved said, we didn't lose a penny. What are we doing here? We weren't damaged. Nobody was complaining except Tish James, who ran for office saying, I will get him. Then you have Alvin Bragg, who's a George Soros-funded prosecutor who doesn't like to prosecute any crime in New York City, where I lived for 17 years, except if your name is Donald Trump. Let's go down to Georgia, where Fani Willis and Nathan Wade couldn't keep their libidos in check long enough to actually bring this case against Donald Trump. It's a repeat of what was happening in January 6th up in the case with Judge Chutkan, who loathes Trump and has sentenced almost every J6 defendant to way more jail time than their counterparts would get. Those are falling apart because of presidential immunity, which was handed down by the Supreme Court, who said you cannot bring a criminal case against a sitting president for any official act. Those cases have been gutted. Also a Supreme Court ruling saying the same on January 6 defendants in general. And that leaves us with Florida and the documents. And Trump has torn that apart because Jack Smith wasn't properly appointed and isn't the right counsel. But there are other issues. They haven't even gotten to presidential immunity there. And so that one's going nowhere as well. And by the way, they're going to appeal it up to the 11th Circuit. It out. The 11th Circuit is conservative, and thank God so is the current Supreme Court. They're not going to tolerate that nonsense.
Let me ask you about...
Yeah, golf clap, Megyn Kelly. But that's exactly what they are trying to do. You know, it is quite possible that all of the people that she just mentioned there, the prosecutors and everyone else involved in all of this lawfare against Trump, kind of knew that none of it was going to work. I actually do think that that is possible, but you would just keep him so distracted, so stuck in courtrooms, so having to deal with other issues and spend money on all of these things and worry about his businesses and family and whether he's going to end up in jail, that maybe he wouldn't want to run for president. It wasn't always just like, let's just destroy him in the most obvious sense. It might be, let's distract him enough so he can't run for president. Now, ironically, most people, it seem to understand that Megyn Kelly is right about that stuff and are not buying it anymore. Of course, the more they do all of this stuff, it has ginned up unbelievably extraordinary and perhaps unprecedented hatred against this man who was president of the United States and hopefully will be again. As you know, he was almost assassinated again about a week and a half ago. And CNN is now sharing the second shooter's letter that he posted, that he planned on posting in case he didn't get to kill Trump. And just take a look at this. It's incredible.
A civilian witness who was given by Ruth a box of materials. In that box, a letter from Ruth that was opened after Ruth was picked up by the cops, writing, "This was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump, but I failed you. I tried my best and gave it all the gumption I could muster. It is up to you now to finish the job, and I will offer $150,000 to whomever can complete the job." That piece of evidence now very likely being discussed in court as prosecutors want to keep him behind bars.
Boy, is that chilling.
So Ruth, who obviously did not get to kill the threat to democracy and all of the fascists and the Hitler and all the stuff that they call him, he didn't get to do it, but somehow they're okay airing that he's offering. I don't know how he plans on doing it. I don't know what mechanism there is. He plans on offering $150,000 if somebody else can do it, which I think is particularly interesting in light of the fact that whenever we have these shootings, and in the last 2 years, these school shootings, there's been several of them by trans people who have written manifestos. We never get to see those manifestos. But this one where the guy's like, sorry, I didn't get to kill Trump, but you could get out there and do it and I'll figure out a way to pay you. Yeah, they have no problem airing that one. And the problem with all of this is, of course, and the problem with the rhetoric around Trump is that it clearly is going to cause a certain amount of unhinged people, a certain amount of people who have mental health problems, who have been completely duped by the dishonest media to do crazy things. This video was going viral yesterday. This is just an unhinged leftist in Idaho who I think has been arrested subsequently, talking about how he wants to kill Donald Trump.
Okay, folks, I apologize for my appearance here, but, you know, I've been fighting this Trump thing for quite a while. And I want you guys to know that it's over for Trump. Joseph Biden was executed in 2019. John Kennedy Jr. showed up. And Trump is a rapist pig. Now, I've had it with this. I've been told by heaven and Marion Albright to take Trump down. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I want Trump in a body bag.
Interestingly, that's Sonny Hostin without makeup. Look, there are obviously, as far as I understand, the guy's been arrested, but there are obviously more of these people right? What would you do? It's just a thought exercise that many of us had if you had a good social studies teacher, probably in 11th grade, or a sociology teacher, or a philosophy teacher in college. Like, what would you do if you could kill baby Hitler, right? If you could kill that innocent baby before he became Hitler? It's an interesting philosophical question, right? And people have argued this for decades and decades. Well, if you keep saying the man is Hitler, he's coming to kill all these people, he's an existential threat to democracy, and then you have a populace that is on mind-bending drugs and a media that lies to it and everything else, then you get those types of people. But it's not just that. We now have evidence that Iran is actually pushing some of these threats on Donald Trump. Check this out. It's regarding a Truth Social post below, but I'll just read the recap from Mario Nawafal. Iran has already made moves against me, and they will try again. This is quoting Trump. I'm surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than ever before. Thank you to Congress for unanimously approving more money to the Secret Service. An attack on a former president is a death wish for the attacker. And then there's a bit more on Trump's Truth Social there. But the point here is that now it appears that Iran is orchestrating some of this. So is there some sort of collusion between our mainstream media and Iran? I don't know. But this is now particularly interesting. So this is why I really wanted to show you this. So Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut, he is a Democrat. He has been hinting over the last couple weeks that there is way more nefarious stuff going on as it pertains to the security around Trump. And here he is yesterday.
I am reaching the point of total outrage because the response from the Department of Homeland Security has been totally lacking. In fact, I think it's tantamount to stonewalling in many respects. If necessary, I'll certainly support a subpoena.
All right. So what does he know? What does he know around the breakdown of security around Trump? What does he know about the fact that the original shooter got on a slightly slanted roof where they said they couldn't put any agents and was only 150 meters or so from Donald Trump and actually did shoot him, right? Actually did shoot him. What did they not do? What kind of advanced prep work did they not do on the golf course just 10 days or so ago? And what else could be in the system right now? You know, I had dinner with a couple friends the other night, and a buddy of mine said to me something that I think we've all sort of thought, but he said it in such a stark way that it really hit me. Partly what could be going on here with these breakdowns around security around Trump is that you don't kill the guy just like that. It would be so freaking jarring for everybody. But doesn't it feel like the ground has just been softened now? And maybe it's not even Trump that they get, but the ground is being softened so that it's sort of starting to feel normalized that politicians will be shot at. And eventually when you shoot at people, eventually someone's going to get killed. And that is an unbelievably dangerous place. Let's not forget, we're a country that over the course of a couple years in the 60s and 70s had multiple major public people, JFK and MLK and RFK, get shot and killed, right? So these things are not out of the question. But if we're about to unearth that, if the ground is being seeded with that, may God help us all. Of course, what leads to all of this is the rhetoric. And the reason they have the rhetoric is because their ideas are bad. That's all they've got. So we'll have more on Kamala's bad ideas in just a second. Let me tell you about 1775 coffee.
We always rave about 1775's coffee, but they've stepped it up with some new additions. If you're serious about your mornings, their protein creamer is a game changer. With 10 grams of whey protein per serving, this isn't your average cup of joe. Whether you're fasting to keep your energy up or building strength for that extra boost, whey protein helps with recovery and keeps your metabolism firing. We're here to help you perform at your best while others just load you with fat and sugar. Looking at you, Duncan. In addition to the creamer, 1775 Coffee just launched new coffee pods, making it easier to take 1775 on the go while still delivering the same high quality and single origin beans. And if you're after a real mental edge, their new brain-boosting mushroom blend will have you more focused than a big tech exec scrambling to figure out how to deal with Rumble. Head on over to 1775coffee.com, grab your protein creamer, and check out the new lineup. Fuel your day with products that deliver. Use code Rubin to get 15% off.
All right, so one of the ways, if you don't have any good ideas, if all of your policies have led to the destruction of our cities and the lockdown of our families and inflation and an open border and all of those things, one thing you might want to do is what we've illustrated on the first half of the show. You might want the lawfare, you might want the softening of the ground as it pertains to assassinations and everything else. And that seemingly is true at this point because Harris's record on virtually everything is a crisscross across the board of meaningless drivel because it's impossible to figure out what the woman believes other than what I believe, which is that she actually is either a socialist or a communist or a Marxist. She is. These are the policies that I think she actually believes. Check this out. I think this is from 2019, Fox News, reporting on Harris as she's talking about illegal immigration.
The Harris team is so shy about this now, which would be a surprise to 2018 Kamala Harris, Grand Marshal of the annual Kingdom Day Parade in Los Angeles, where she was standing beside actor Jussie Smollett, chanting, "Down with deportation."
Up with education, down with deportation. Up with education, down with deportation. Up with education, down with deportation. Up with education, down with deportation.
The vice president's border experience has been tough to track. She insists now that she was not the border czar, never was, but she has tried to keep some street cred about the border, like when we traveled with her there for her only trip as vice president a few months after President Biden put her in charge of the root causes of migration.
How did you decide that right now was the right time to make your first trip to the border?
Well, it's not my first trip. I've been to the border many times.
As the person in charge of the response.
Because as I've long said, I said back in March I was going to come to the border, so this is not a new plan.
She has not been back since then.
There's so much there. First off, we just checked on the fly right now. So she's at this event, 2018, chanting "Down, down with deportation" with Jussie Smollett, the guy who faked his own lynching, which then led to riots in the country and led to AOC and Kamala Harris and virtually every Democrat talking about what a systemically racist country we are and everything else. Phoenix just checked. Kamala Harris's tweet about it. What's the exact tweet? What does it say? We'll pull it up in just a second. It's just so extraordinary. She still has the tweet up, even though we now know the entire thing was a hoax. He hired two guys to quote unquote lynch him, but she doesn't even have the temerity to delete the tweet. This is what she wrote. She wrote, "Jussie Smollett is one of the kindest, most gentle human beings I know. I'm praying for his quick recovery. This was an attempted modern-day lynching. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or color of their skin. We must confront this hate." How absolutely incredible. She has left the freaking tweet up. Also, why is it? So which is it, lady? Now you're saying that we should have a tighter border, right? You're basically copying Trump at this point, even though it's your own administration that's let all these people in. But there you were in 2018 chanting for down with deportation. So which is it? Or are you just a vapid nothing? Rhetorical. That was a rhetorical question. Here's another classic from Kamala on what she would do with immigration detention centers.
Hi, my name is Sally Hartman. I'm a volunteer with the Center for Worker Justice. Okay. I want to know, when you become president, would you be committing to close immigration detention centers?
Absolutely, on day one. On day one.
Oh, day one. Well, that's an interesting thing. Do you still believe that? So you're down with deportation, so you don't want to deport anybody, and also the centers that hold these people while we figure out why they're here, who they are, what their intentions are. I don't know. Do you have fentanyl in your butt? We're going to just let them out. We're going to close them on day one, too, and just send them out into the streets. Do you realize how profoundly evil these people are? They are evil. I'm not really not being a dick about it. I don't know how to describe it any other way. If you lived, let's say, somewhere near a deportation center, and then it's day one, right? It's January, early January, or it's January 20th, I suppose. It's January 20th, 2025. And they just close the deportation center. How do you think that's going to work out? How do you think that is going to work out? And by the way, it has been the policy of the Biden administration to let in We don't even know. It's somewhere now, we think, between 12 and 15 million people. Who the high hell are they? And why did we let them in? Well, check this out. Former Chief Border Patrol agent Aaron Heitke was at a congressional hearing, and here he is basically saying that there's been a cover-up involved in how horrible the border situation is.
In San Diego, we had an exponential increase in significant interest aliens. These are aliens with significant ties to terrorism. Prior to this administration, the San Diego sector averaged 10 to 15 SIA arrests per year. Once word was out the border was far easier to cross, San Diego went to over 100 SIAs in 2022, well over that in 2023, and even more than that registered this year. These are only the ones we caught. At the time, I was told I could not release any information on this increase in SIAs or mention any of the arrests. The administration was trying to convince the public there was no threat at the border. Fentanyl is another issue. The San Diego area sees between 80 and 90% of the methamphetamine and fentanyl seizures annually for our entire country. With little enforcement at the border, these drugs were coming through en masse. During my last year in San Diego, the price for a single pill of fentanyl, for example, went from $10 to 25 cents. To make matters worse, during 2022 and 23, I had to shut down San Diego traffic checkpoints, which are critical for drug interdiction, because the resources had been diverted to the process and release mission. The large numbers also had and still have a negative impact on the San Diego community. I had to release illegal aliens by the hundreds each day into communities who could not support them. To quiet the problem, 2 flights a week were provided from San Diego to Texas. These flights simply brought aliens that would have been released in San Diego over to Texas. Each flight cost approximately $150,000. This was the administration's way to try and quiet the border-wide crisis.
Guys, why is that video, that was C-SPAN, right? Because they just air these hearings. Why would something like that not be on CNN? Why would something like that not be on MSNBC? Especially now if the Democrats are pretending there is a problem at the border. Or pretending to care about it, I should say. They're not pretending about it. That guy, Chief Border Patrol agent over there, is suddenly having to arrest all these people, having to release all these people, having to send them to Texas, having to not report on it. Does he strike you as the bad guy in this situation? Kind of makes you wonder. And then, of course, when you do bring all of these people in, contrary to what the Democrats say, a good percentage of these people do commit crime. Not all of them. And by the way, I don't blame the average person who's coming from wherever, who wants to make a better life. I don't blame them for trying to get here. America's pretty damn great. Of course, the irony is the Democrats think it sucks, and yet they want everyone to share in the suckiness. But a good portion of these people end up committing crime. Check this out from Wokeness. Gerber Luis Sanchez Centeno invaded Texas 3 months ago. Biden/Harris let Gerber stay. He just killed a girl in Maryland. And we can go through a gajillion of these every single day, right? And we all know it, and it's happening. And why don't we even know that girl's name? Why does the media not care about that? But if a cop shot somebody who was rushing at them with a knife of a particular skin color, there would be riots on the streets. Kind of makes you wonder. I want to throw back to a video. We've shown you this once or twice before, but what has happened in light of the psychotic policies of the Democrats over the last 4 years as it pertains to the border and immigration particularly, is that we now have a new alliance of people. I'm always talking about the Elon RFK Tulsi portion of it, but it now even includes people like JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon. This is from a couple months ago. You've seen it, but he is absolutely right here. And if he is right, well, Jamie Dimon, are you going to support Kamala Harris? I don't think so.
If you do not control the borders, you are going to destroy our country. And so I think the people who think that somehow this is okay, so now they're sending the migrants into New York and stuff like that. So all of my super liberal friends, now they realize what a problem is. Did it have to be that? That we realize it. So we want to have a big heart for the world, but we have to.
So I get it. Liberals have a big heart, a small brain and a big heart, and he's still got some super liberal friends. But as they see just what's happening in New York City over the last couple of days, we're not even showing any video of it today, but now there are Hezbollah rallies. Not just Hamas, it's Hezbollah. Hezbollah, which killed 300 some odd Americans in the Beirut attacks back in 1983. Now they're having rallies and they're masked up and, fighting with police officers and everything else. So we have no idea who is coming here. And eventually it will come to your door and the barbarians will be at the gate. And as my friend Douglas Murray says, the barbarians will be at the gate and we will be debating what gender pronouns to call them. So what is the plan? Well, you guys know the plan. It does not take a rocket scientist. It is that they are trying to change the demographics of this country. They might say it's a conspiracy theory to say that, oh, it's not true. They don't want illegals here just so they can vote, except every now and again, they actually tell you the truth. You remember this a couple of weeks ago, Nancy Pelosi to Bill Maher.
Making the American dream of home ownership available to all people is something we have to do for people who are here now.
This is before you're a citizen. This is undocumented. This is for the undocumented.
Well, what I would like to do is move them to documented. The fact that we can move them to documented. And one of the best things that we can do for our economy is to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
First off, just quick on Bill. Bill, you're going to vote for it. You're going to vote for it. You're going to support Kamala Harris, obviously. So, it is what it is, I suppose, on the Bill Maher front. But as for Pelosi there, she is saying it. And she's just wrong. It's not just that it's wrong morally and ethically. It's wrong legally. The American dream is for Americans. That's why we're not Canadians. That's why we're not Mexicans. It would be nice in a utopian fantasy planet if everybody could have everything, but that's just not the way it is. So they are she's here to give $150,000 house loans, which of course will not be loans because no one's going to pay them back, to illegals who then will just become lifelong Democrats because she wants indentured servants to the Democrat Party. Here's Kamala Harris on her policy as it pertains to the economy, and I'm pretty sure she's getting this thing wrong.
Together, we will build what I call an opportunity economy.
Kamala Harris has unveiled her economic plan. There's a big emphasis on lowering costs and taxes while boosting affordable housing.
When I am elected president, I will make it a top priority to bring down costs and increase economic security for all Americans.
Here's what you need to know. In her first 100 days in office, Harris wants to implement the first ever federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries. She says the aim is to stop big corporations from exploiting consumers while generating big profits for themselves. There would be penalties for companies that break the new limits.
So believe me, as president, I will go after the bad actors.
I know people don't like when I say retarded, but you'd have to be retarded to believe that woman. And I get it. There's probably a lot of retards running around. They're out there. What are we going to do? Do you think that corporations are just walking around like, let's gouge the people. Let's gouge all of the people. No, that's not what they're doing. The reason, as I keep saying, the reason that a pound of chopped meat is now $8.99 when under Trump it was $4.99 is because the value of the dollar is less. And the value of the dollar is less because they have pumped money into this economy. They raise taxes on corporations and on people. Then people start spending less. Like, these are basic economic 101 things. But what she's really saying is we want more government control over the evil corporations. If you really wanted people to be spending more money and prices to drop, you would lower regulation and lower taxes, allow us to make decisions. So then more companies start opening, and the more companies that start opening to sell groceries, the more grocery stores there are, then grocery store number one, which is charging an awful lot for that dozen eggs, they're like, oh shit, 3 other grocery stores opened over there and they're all competing with prices. We better start lowering our prices. And then what happens is, as they realize that, the farmers start realizing it goes every which way, right? And then if you have more money in your check every week, you might spend a little bit more money. Phoenix, what would you buy if you had a little more money each week? If the government chipped off just a little bit of those taxes, what would you buy? More eggs. Okay, the man is starving over there, for God's sakes. Let's jump back to Kevin O'Leary because he's not just critical of what's going on up there in Canada. He is not a big fan of the Kamala Harris either.
Who is it? Who's better for the economy?
I don't know yet because I don't have any details from Harris.
She has been all sugar, no protein. That's it. And it's become a really big sticking point with investors. We've got to remember we have the largest economy on earth. Over 85% of our jobs are created by the private sector. Business investors like me and leaders have to deal with who's ever in the White House in January. So whoever ends up on the 6th of November as the new mandate, we'll have to deal with them. So we need data. We need policy. And I'm getting a little critical now because I don't have any. So I need answers around taxation. For example, if you tell me that taxes are going to be 28% plus state taxes on corporations' headquarters, I'll have to worry that they move to Ireland again, because we did that to them once, and that didn't work out for us very well. I really need to understand the idea of price controls. That didn't work in the 70s. It doesn't work anywhere else on earth. And this whole idea of taxing unrealized gains, I mean, that you got to remember the number one export of America is the American dream. This is a 200-year-old economy that's based on supporting entrepreneurship. That destroys capital formation. Those ideas are beyond non-starters. They're crazy. And so you have to get more details on that.
Look, the two bumper sticker ones there are the price controls. That's government control. That is communism. That's why when you walk into a store in a communist country, they have one type of toilet paper. We call it toilet paper. That's what they have. You don't have 5 different types or 20 different types. Go to Costco or go to wherever the hell you're getting toilet paper now. And there's a lot of different toilet paper in America. And you can decide, I want to spend a little bit less and it's going to burn a little bit more, or I really want to go with the Charmin Extra Soft and it's going to be great, but you're going to pay a little bit extra more. That's the beauty of America. That's the beauty of capitalism. Or you can have toilet paper. We call it toilet paper. That was, I think that's Yakov Smirnoff from the 1980s right there. See if you can find that. Yakov Smirnoff toilet paper joke. Let's see if we can add that to the show. And then, of course, price controls. It's so idiotic. Yes, the government should set the price of tuna, morons. And then the unrealized gains thing, which we've gone into already. It's just so absolutely insane. Even the word, it's so Orwellian. Unrealized gains. Oh, money you haven't earned yet. So we will tax you on money you have not earned yet. And then what happens is you might be like, I'm going to be taxed on money I haven't earned yet. And by the way, I may never earn it. The economy might go down, the company might go bust, and then no one will be able to fund things. You will crush, that's his point, you will crush the American dream. You will crush entrepreneurship. Did we find Yakov Smirnoff and the toilet paper? We're looking for it. But Kamala is raking in the important endorsements. Donald Trump referenced one of them a day or two ago.
It's no wonder that Kamala Harris was just officially endorsed by IRS agents. Do you believe it? That's when you'd say, I'd rather not have that endorsement.
That says it right there. That says it right there. And it's absolutely true. The IRS agents, their union, endorsed Kamala Harris because she's going to keep them real busy because they'll be looking at every little thing that you spent on and they'll be trying to squeeze every dime out of you and they'll want more millionaires taxes and unrealized gains taxes and all of the rest of it. So she is good for business for the system. And the fact that Trump just gets up there and jokes about it. Like, yeah, I wouldn't want that one, and you shouldn't want that one. All right, crazy. What am I getting here? If you need 144, I'm going to let that go. We're going to see if we can find that clip. Let's continue with Donald Trump anymore because he actually referenced the same exact American dream that Kevin O'Leary talked about in that same speech we just showed you from.
What a good warrior you are. Thank you. We don't talk about the American dream, right? Anymore. We used to talk about it all the time. Today, they don't talk about it. Don't lose hope. We have to have hope. Don't lose hope. Our country's an embarrassment. The whole world is laughing at us. We're going to be stronger. They weren't laughing at us 4 years ago.
The American dream. I'm going to start talking about it more. I think we do talk about it here, and we show you the clips of when things were right as opposed to how out of whack they've gone, and we're going to end on one of those today. But the American dream, let me give a shout out to my man Guido, who cuts my hair every 3 weeks. Guido came from Italy about 25 years ago with nothing. He had basically absolutely nothing. He loves telling me this story. Huge Trump supporter. Guido, I hope I'm not outing you in any way. Now owns a salon, just launched his own shampoo and conditioner and hair products. They're building a bigger salon right now. And he loves telling me about the American dream, that you could come here. And if you came here legally and you played by the rules, you had a freaking chance. But now we've got a woman that wants to control the amount you will pay for eggs or beef. And that is what all of our families fled, whether they fled Latin America or Eastern Europe or wherever they fled. They were fleeing the authoritarian control of people who wanted a piece of everything that should be yours. And here we said, go get yours. Pursue it. Pursue happiness. It's a crazy thing. So, of course, the other thing they do is they keep you they try to take Trump off the ballots. They try to keep him in jail. They try to tell you he's evil and all of those things. The media works with the censorship situation. You get all that. And then, of course, there's another piece to their thing, which is they've got to keep everyone in a constant state of craziness. You must be constantly worried that the sky is falling. Basically, they've all turned into Chicken Little. Here's Bjørn Lomborg, who I've had on the show, who's a great guy, climatologist, who is not crazy. Somehow they let him on Bill Maher's show a couple days ago, and he explained that climate change, not that big of a problem.
I'm going to show you some of the data that actually indicates this is a problem, but it's not the end of the world by any means. So there's two of the world's leading climate economists. One is Richard Tull, one of the most quoted climate economists from this year, and the other one is William Nordhaus, the guy who got the only Nobel Prize in climate economics. They both made estimates across all the different estimates of how bad is climate change going to be. By the end of the century, at a 3 degrees centigrade or 5.4 degree Fahrenheit temperature rise, the cost is going to be somewhere between 2 and 3% of GDP.
But what will the ocean look like? I mean, I'm not talking about oceans rising. I'm talking about oceans dying. Tell me about why you think the coral reef problem is exaggerated.
That's just the data. So can I just finish the other point
Yeah,
I was trying to make before we go on to the coral reefs? So 2 to 3% of global GDP is a problem. But remember, by the end of the century, the UN estimate the average person on the planet will be 450% as rich as he or she is today. So that means instead of being 450% as rich, we will feel like we're only 435% as rich. Yes, that's a problem. No, it's not the end of the world. But most of the challenge comes from overfishing, from industrial pollution, from sea runoff, and those are the kinds of things that we should fix. But we're not being well informed if we're being told this is because of climate change, so we got to change our entire infrastructure and our global economy in order to save the oceans when it's not actually what's going to happen.
Maybe.
I have to say, it's pretty great that some of the people in the audience clap there, because that is the thing. When you talk about climate change, and if you're not for the Green New Deal, if you don't give AOC the power to fix the climate, that's one of the things that they would love to cancel everybody for and keeps liberals in a constant state of hysteria. So Bjorn cites statistics. I recommend you read. He's written several books on this. We had him on about a year ago, and I'll definitely have him back on. The point of all of this, guys, the reason I threw that clip in there, it seems like a little bit of a non sequitur, is that as they're pushing all of their bad policies, as they're trying to remove Trump one way or another, as they're trying to keep you in this constant state of craziness, how about we start remembering who we are again? How about we start remembering what this country was founded upon again? And how about we start going for that American dream? My friend Jordan Peterson, just under a year ago at the R conference, gave what I think was his absolute best speech ever. And he talked about how we should perhaps not forget about some of that stuff.
And we've forgotten all of that. And as a consequence of forgetting that, we've forgotten the responsibility that we need to bear in our life to make our lives bearable. And we've forgotten the meaning and the adventure and the purpose and the significance and the earned self-regard that goes along with that sacrificial attitude. And we've forgotten to tell our children the same thing. And we could remember who we are. We could remember who we are. And that's what this conference was for, to remind people, everyone who attends, who you are, right? You're the...
But you know what happens if you forget? If you forget, the people around you forget. And if the people around you forget, start spreading throughout the community. And then it starts spreading up and up and up. And then you know what happens to a society when everyone kind of forgets? Well, check out Philly just this past weekend. All right. So that's a city that is forgotten. It looks like a scene out of The Joker, which, by the way, Joker 2 is coming out right before the election, which to me is like, they're just going to set the thing. It's just a signal for the system, like set it on fire if you're not happy about it. But that is a place that has forgotten. And guess what? Philadelphia was not.
This is Philadelphia as originally plotted by William Penn. The city has grown naturally, both up and out, but Center City streets bear the mark of the founder. With all of its changes and its modern pace, Philadelphia is still the town that was given by William Penn and given character by Ben Franklin.
So 1960s Philly, the American dream, the chance, clean, people working, or law and order, hope. Philadelphia this past weekend, that is a place that's forgotten. So let's start remembering. Maybe if enough of us start remembering over the next 40 days, the results on November 6th, not that that's the end-all be-all to all of the existential problems here, but maybe the results will be pretty good. We got a post-game show coming up in about 30 seconds, rubinreport.locals.com. My full interview with Vivek Ramaswamy is up across platforms right now, and we leave you with a little humor at Justin Trudeau's expense. Goodbye.
Justin Trudeau is a